2030.
Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of excitement
This
around
transformational
specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla.
Episode 31. Dr. Hanaa, hello. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Back in the United States after a week in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, in Jeddah. In a few minutes, Dr. Hanaa, we have a really awesome interview and conversation with Iyad Aldalooj, who is CEO of Penny Software, one of the Saudi Arabia's hottest startups that is on a path to unicorn territory. Please forgive my voice, by the way. I may have picked something up in transit or perhaps at home from one of my children. It is a weapons laboratory of viruses here at all times, so please forgive the way I sound. I feel pretty good, actually. Finally caught up on sleep. I first met Iyad, by the way, who's terrific, in my apartment building in Riyadh. We were living in the same apartment building, and actually his wife met my wife and said, oh, I think there's some overlap here between what my husband does and what you do. Incredibly great, bright guy from a family in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. And his is a success story of Saudi Arabia investing in its citizens. He comes from a humble family and started working at Careem, one of Saudi Arabia's darling startups, before founding Penny Software, which I should mention is now being chased from every direction by VCs. You will also probably hear that I had a little bit of technical difficulty in my hotel in Jeddah, but the show must go on. We are nothing if not resilient here at the 2030. So Dr. Hanaa leads the discussion and interview. And Dr. Hanaa, you were brilliant as always too, doing that. So thank you. It's really good.
No, it was a pleasure to have that discussion with him. We realized that we knew so many people in common, that my husband and Iyad had dinner together in Omaha and so many other really interesting things. But just Penny Software is growing, and it is, one of those kind of global outward facing companies that was established in Saudi. And that's what we love to see. We want to see companies that are competitive everywhere, not just kind of filling a market gap within the kingdom. And Iyad's definitely created that. And I love talking to him about that and kind of some of the challenges, but really more about where he's going with this. And he was, a phenomenal guest to have on. So I really think that it's going to be a great episode for people to listen to who are interested in kind of how Saudi companies really are now turning into something that is more of a, again, sophisticated, agile, global young company rather than, a small kind of mom and pop shop, which used to be the case.
Yeah, it was really cool because the day before we recorded the interview in Riyadh, I was speaking, actually moderating a panel on AI, and he gave a keynote right beforehand. I was like, yeah, dude, what's up? See you tomorrow, man, on the recording. It was really cool. This feedback is from Bill Connor on our LinkedIn page. The 2030 is an absolute must listen for friends and followers of Saudi Arabia. Congratulations to Lucien and Dr. Hanaa for a consistently informative and fascinating program. Thank you for that, Bill, who is a public speaking coach in Saudi Arabia for both the government and private sector. Cannot list all of his clients here, but it's a who's who of Saudi Arabia. It's the best in the business. So thanks, Bill, for that. And then this feedback is from @Shalik, SHL1QQ. I definitely said that wrong. Thank you. That was really informative on our Riyadh season episode. So thank you, Shalik. How would you say that?
I have no idea. I don't know. I think that some of these are YouTube handles. Sometimes I think are just kind of made up. I don't know, but maybe that is their name.
Yeah, maybe it is Shalik. I mean, maybe not. Who knows? But you can check out our YouTube page where you can search and browse our segments and other topics there very easily. We cover a lot on the show twice a week. So what we're forming there is a bit of a library of our content. So thanks to everyone for being with us there and wherever you're listening to this or watching it. We appreciate it very much. Dr. Hanaa, what do you think? Let's jump into our conversation with Iyad.
Let's get to Iyad. A very warm welcome today on the main stage. We have a guest, Iyad Aldalooj, the CEO and co-founder of Penny Software, an enterprise software company that provides procurement management technology and is considered a leader in cloud-based source-to-pay solutions. Iyad was a general manager at Careem in Saudi Arabia when it was acquired for $3 billion and sits on the boards of SACO and is a member of the MISC 2030 leaders. Welcome, Iyad.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I would love to start with you just telling us a little bit about your own story. You've had an amazing journey so far. So please tell us about yourself, where you're from, and your journey.
Absolutely. So there's I'll give you the resume like version, and then I'll drop something that is super interesting at the end. And we'll just stop there because that will require another podcast. So I'm a Saudi entrepreneur, born and raised, of course, here. And I went to college in the US. Out of all places, I chose Omaha, Nebraska, perhaps for my love to Charlie Munger and then Warren Buffett. And I lived in Omaha for quite some time. I did my undergrad in engineering, did my master's there. And then I co-founded an e-commerce technology company when I was in the US. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey. I think it was back in like 2010, when I first discovered the love of Silicon Valley. And I was extremely fascinated about all the things that were going on in Silicon Valley. I would travel to Silicon Valley and I, had this dream I was fascinated by the innovation and the level of ambitions that were there. Did not end up going to Silicon Valley. So Omaha was my Silicon Valley, and I started an e-commerce technology company there, ran it for about 7 years. We tried to raise external capital, failed to raise external capital. So it was an unbelievable journey. At that time, Careem approached me, and I was very excited about the vision of Careem. And I moved back to Saudi to join Careem as a general manager. Then I became the marketing director of Careem as well. Now I can talk about Careem all day because that's an unbelievable journey. But after Careem was acquired by Uber, this is when I wanted to do something different, and we started Penny Software, and that was the beginning. We launched Penny Software. We started in 2020. The official launch was in 2021. So we are 3.5 years old company. And that's the resume version. But the thing that I wanted to drop just to keep it interesting is you asked me about my life and where I come from. Perhaps the most interesting part about my life is that I think my childhood, and the most interesting part is that I grew up in a 500 years old castle. Yeah. And we can,
Where is this castle? Tell us about it.
So this castle in a city in Sharqiya, which is the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, Careem, and it has a lot of historical buildings and historical castles. So the house I grew up in was built during the Ottoman Empire, and it was a 500 years old castle. It's an incredible story. I actually am in the process of writing a book about it, and I published the first few pages. So if you look up snippets of my odd life, The Castle and Potato Chips, that's the title. We will find that story.
Fantastic. I look forward to visiting it. I actually think, is it now protected and kind of registered with the Ministry of Culture?
That is correct. We are actually in touch with the Ministry of Culture for that.
I think I visited this castle the last time I was in Sharqiya. If I went on a tour in Qatif, would somebody have taken me there?
You won't believe how many people I need. You told me that, is that your house?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a picture of your house.
I'll show you the photos later.
Believe that.
We'll include them in the video.
I'm used to it.
That's
when we were
fantastic.
kids, one of the weekend activities that was like back in the early 90s. One of the weekend activities in the morning is to wait for that Aramco bus that's full of Americans that would just come and just take a tour in our house, and just we're kids, and it's fascinating that I had this in my childhood. I'm thankful for it.
Yes, it is amazing. And I can say to whoever has not been, it is worth a visit. It is gorgeous. And I learned and actually, there were so many things that I loved about kind of just the way the layout of the house was. And just the tour guide was wonderful. And he was incredibly, just added so much. He was very informed and added a lot of kind of value to the tour because he was knowledgeable about kind of how the different rooms were used and the history of it. And
Right.
this is amazing that you grew up there. Okay, but we're going off on a
Right.
tangent, and that's not what we're talking about today. However, people should definitely check it out, and I'd love to read the Potato Chips and Castle. But in the meantime, please tell us a little bit about Penny Software. As you mentioned, it's 3 years old, but you've said in the past that the goal is to consumerize the enterprise experience. And the enterprise
Right.
systems don't have to be boring. So as far as I understood, you have 1 billion riyals going through the company. What is that, annually, or even like?
So that's the gross transaction value, which basically, let me give a brief introduction
Please.
about what is Penny Software. So simply, it is a SaaS platform for procurement management. So think about Penny as like a verticalized enterprise software, ERP software, but only for procurement. So we always say that we are the software that your procurement team uses at the company. And we typically serve mid-market, upper market, mid-sized companies, large size, semi-government, government. So all organizations that tend to have complex procurement need procurement software for governance, compliance, and overall automation. And what we serve those companies, and they add their suppliers to the platform. So it kind of creates this network effect of buyers and suppliers. Now, our clients are the buyers, but they add the suppliers to the platform, and it's a multi-tenant kind of platform where you have buyers on one side, suppliers on one side, and they're doing business and transactions with each other. So this year we're tracking 1 billion riyal, but that's just the beginning. We forecast that next year we will be more than 10 billion riyal, and those are the GTVs.
That is an amazing story. So tell us a little bit about the impetus behind establishing Penny Software. I mean, what were the existing challenges in the procurement industry that you identified and that led to the spark?
Well, whenever I'm asked this question, I wish the answer would be that I spent 10, 15 years in procurement and I've identified this challenge because I'm familiar with it and I come from the industry. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. So I'm totally an intruder on the procurement space. I do not come from procurement background, but our co-founder, Majid, comes from procurement background. So he is the expert in procurement. But to tell you why we started Penny, I cannot not go to the purpose of Penny. So I joined Careem. Careem was an early stage startup in Saudi, and I have witnessed the growth of Careem to become a multi-billion-dollar company. The impact it did. I think anyone who's observing the ecosystem would testify that the impact of Careem was a multiplier impact. It wasn't just the 3 billion. It was the multiplier impact in the whole ecosystem. And that was really, really amazing. The next thing after leaving Careem for me was what purpose can I really, really stick to for the long term? And the long term, I'm not talking about the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I'm talking about the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life. What is that one mission that I can stick to? And the one mission that resonated with me and our co-founders is this region is amazing and full of provision. And we see what's happening in Saudi Arabia. We see what's happening with Vision 2030. We see the boom in innovation and the startup ecosystem. But what we hadn't seen yet, and we're confident it is happening, is building world-class software brand from this region to the world. And this is something that we're confident that's inevitably happening. And this is I think this is a byproduct, whether we intended or not, byproduct of Vision 2030. And we wanted to be part of that. We want to be part of building a world-class brand from this region to the world software brand. And guess what? This became the actual statement of the company. So at Penny, we probably say this every day, building a world-class software brand from the region to the world. Now, we took that and we reverse engineer it to how can we do this? Now, in order for us to build this, we cannot do something similar to Careem because Careem is heavily operationally driven and we can't scale with operationally driven startups. So SaaS is the right way, is the right platform to use. So we settled on building SaaS. Now, I know this is a very long answer to your question, but I'm sort of like cascading down on how we arrived at procurement. And we realized that in terms of SaaS, if we build a B2B SaaS, what should it do? And we looked at the main verticals of any organization, and we discovered that procurement in particular is behind in digitization. So if you think of the main verticals of every organization, HR is ahead in digitization, finance, accounting, sales, the CRM industry is a $500 billion industry. You could, all of these, but when it comes to procurement, we identified procurement and legal. I cannot stand legal, so we settled on procurement. And that's the answer.
That is fascinating. And actually, I think that's one of the things that really makes your company stand out. You're very young, but at the same time, you are a success story in the tech field for so many reasons. But the key one is that you are, a global company already. How were you able to penetrate the global market and be competitive in this space?
So first of all, the vision at the beginning is that we're going to be focusing here in Saudi and build advantages here, and then we grow. But the problem we're solving is a global problem. The tool we're building can serve you whether you're in Riyadh, Tokyo, or London. Doesn't matter. What we found ourselves from day one in Saudi here in Riyadh, when we are competing with, when we are trying to acquire a customer, from day one, we're competing with Oracle, we're competing with SAP, Microsoft. So from day one, we're competing with the global players, whether in Riyadh or London, it doesn't matter. So that was unbelievably challenging. You could look at it as discouraging, but you could also look at it as highly encouraging. And we wanted, and that sort of pushed us to raise the bar. So we were competing with the global players from day one. It's not even a choice for us. Now, in terms of global users, we still don't have an outbound machine at Penny, and this is something that is coming up, but we don't have it yet. So all of our clients, especially outside of Saudi, came in organically. So to give you an example, we have one of our clients, a multinational, multi-billion euro company based in Paris, France, and they came in organically. We have a client, very large organization in Nairobi, Kenya. They also came in organically. We have from Pakistan, from other places. In terms of users, the users are mostly the suppliers that are added to the platform. And therefore, we have users from more than 50 countries. Overall, over 8,000 organizations or business users are using Penny.
So I have a question. When you say that you've been competing with Oracle, let's say from day one, what is it that you're adding? And why would they come to you in order to get into to be listed as users and as suppliers versus going to Oracle or adopting that?
So to clarify, when we compete with Oracle or SAP, we're not competing with the ERPs because the ERPs in those both platforms are not are not covering or properly covering the procurement aspect of it. So those two products, for example, have a procurement model. SAP, they have a completely different procurement model. It's called Ariba. Oracle, they have their own. So we compete not with the ERPs, we compete with their procurement. Now, the advantage we have over them is immense. For starters, they're very heavy legacy systems. And we've seen multiple examples where clients went with them and the digital transformation in their organization failed. The reason why it failed because of resistance from the end users, very heavy, very clunky kind of software. So we believe that the market more and more is moving toward faster, lighter, more agile, delightful user experience rather than your good old legacy systems.
No, and that makes perfect sense. Like I think of them as maybe the dinosaurs of the industry, and then you're coming in as this agile, child, really coming in and growing and kind of rolling with the needs of the industry. And I think that's something that you've mentioned before. You've said that the procurement landscape is undergoing a seismic shift. And hyper automation is driving this. So, what do you mean by hyper automation, and how is that changing the procurement industry?
Absolutely. So in the past, we were looking at digitization to start with that. We need to do this on a digital platform. And the reason why we need to do this on a digital platform is we need to have data. We need to have traceability. We need to have visibility. But a lot of those, in the past, a lot of the activities that businesses were doing on a digital platform, we're actually doing manually. So I have to go submit an RFQ. When I receive quotation, I have to go compare it, analyze all of this. Now we're going to hyper automation where it's not only digitization, but it's going to automation. And with automation, here comes the AI application and procurement, which in Penny, we are applying this application. Now, with AI, you don't have to do all of this. Digitization is there, of course. Automation is there, but also the AI is doing a lot of work for you. It's no longer I receive the quotation and compare it and analyze. The system will do that for you. It will just give you the report. And based on the report, the system will even suggest to say, Dr. Hanaa, this is based on the data that we have, we lean toward X or Y. So this hyper automation that we see happening in procurement or other fields is inevitable with AI.
But then that means that you're going to need a different talent base, right? Because isn't this the whole thread of AI anyway, that, it's changing the way we work, and therefore we're going to need to hire people that really know how to use the tech, that are maybe specialized in that instead of being specialized in procurement. So how are you navigating through this challenge?
So I'm not with the camp that is, let's say, the pessimist camp that believe that AI will be threatening jobs. There will be some jobs that will be lost by AI, but then there will be a lot of jobs that will be added by AI. Now, when it comes to the procurement as an application, AI will augment the work of humans. So if I'm working with an amazing talent who's a procurement expert, I want her to be focused on her expertise rather than doing manual work, rather than collecting a lot of proposals and comparing them and analyzing them. I want her to be on the analytical part, right? Not on the manual work. And so I believe it will augment human and empower them. But of course, we cannot be completely oblivious of the fact that AI will eliminate redundancies.
But how are you finding those people that are working with you? How are you finding developing talent?
So when it comes to developing talent, I believe this is one of the main challenges for any tech organization, whether in Saudi or not. Some people say that, this is the challenge in Saudi. Believe me, I was in Silicon Valley and I spent time there. It's exactly the same challenge there. Talent is a challenge everywhere. We are attracting talent from all over the world. We have amazing Saudi talents. We have talents from all over the world. Our team is incredibly diverse. We have people from India, from the US, from the UK, from Egypt, you name it, like Turkey, you name it. So we have a very, very, very diverse team, and I fundamentally believe that if you are working on an exciting project, and you have an exciting vision and a purpose, a lot of talents want to be part of that. A lot of talents want to be part of that.
No, that's true. And I think that, like you said, and you mentioned it already, Vision 2030 is working really hard to create this ecosystem where people want to be a part of it as well. And so you're just, you're driving this forward in such an incredible way because you've created something that people want to be a part of. So you and Lucien were speaking at the same Munshaat conference, the CEO conference, just a couple days ago in Riyadh. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about the status of entrepreneurship in Saudi. I mean, you're, again, clearly one of the success stories. You have a unique view on this coming from Careem as well. So is the ecosystem really developing quickly?
I think I was lucky to be part of that success story through Careem. And I can tell you that back in the days in Careem, first of all, we really, really struggled. So, and by the way, I'm like really at an advantageous position because of Careem. And I'll tell you why. Back in Careem, when I moved back from the US, we were obviously trying to attract talents, and very few people wanted to join a startup. If you go back in 2017, for example, very amazing talents. You're from Sharjah, I'm from Sharjah, and you know how Aramco is, right? Every talent in Sharjah wanted to work in Aramco.
Absolutely. Still do to some degree, right?
Of course, which is good, is good. But give us some, give us some of that talent. And I remember we had this like very, very little humble office in Khubar, and we want to attract amazing talents, and they come in and they already have an offer from Aramco, from McKinsey, and they heard about Careem, and they come to this, and the moment they see the office, like the building is kind of sketchy, they feel like, I'm not sure I want to be here, right? So we really, really struggled. Today, I can tell you at Tini, we do not have that struggle. We have a good product. We have an amazing, exciting mission, and we did at Careem as well. But in Careem, we struggled back in the days because the ecosystem wasn't there yet. Now we see people who are leaving the Googles of the world and want to move. By the way, we have a lot of talents that are moving back. Saudis that probably worked in Silicon Valley or other places and want to move back, which is not surprising. But what we see happening is a lot of Arabs as well who are there in the US for quite some time. And now they hear about Vision 2030. They hear about all the exciting things that are happening, and they want to move to Riyadh, which is really exciting. So the ecosystem is growing amazingly well, and that in itself testifies the momentum that is happening in the ecosystem.
No, absolutely. It is definitely a testament to it. I mean, I can just tell you, I had a startup way back in the day, and it was in food and beverage, and it was impossible to hire Saudis that were not. And then we ended up working with KFUPM and making an arrangement to hire part-time students because that wasn't built into the labor law. That was helpful. Most of them were not from Sharjah, so they didn't have those family obligations. So it made it a little, but it was a very, very difficult challenge, and it was during the time when you were like struggling to get visas. So it's a different landscape today. And I can tell you, just this summer, I was in the US, and like I have friends that have just moved to Saudi that, like you said, Arabs that have lived abroad their entire lives and are super excited to come and see what the vision is about. And so I do think we're in a really lucky transition point, and people who are brave enough to come and test it out, and are lucky enough to find entities like Penny, for instance, are definitely going to be, I would say, pleasantly rewarded by the opportunities that are there. But I would like to say, what are some things that you could share with other entrepreneurs, regional or even in the kingdom, that are listening and watching and thinking, I would love to grow. I would love to be where you are 3 years into my startup. What can you kind of offer in terms of recommendations?
Where can I start? Now, to start with that, let us establish the fact that everybody wanted to be financially successful. Like anyone who tells you that I don't want to be financially successful is not being truthful, right? So be financially successful is an important goal. No one disagrees with this. However, And I know that this is like a broken record. Every entrepreneur says this, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. If the goal is only financial, you will very likely, if you're a hardworking person in an amazing opportunistic market like Saudi Arabia, you will be fine, but you will not really go very far. And my advice is, if you are going to put yourself in this mission, it's an unbelievable roller coaster. If you're getting on this roller coaster anyway, go to the right direction. Think big. Have a purpose that's bigger than you. And well, I truly believe that nothing, and I'm trying to translate the thought in English because it came to my head in Arabic, but nothing more honorable than doing something for your country. Nothing is more honorable than this. And what better thing you can do for your country than creating opportunities, promoting innovation, advancing technology, advancing science, whatever your field is, advancing that field is the best thing we can do. الإعمار في الأرض. This is the best thing we can do. And I believe that Vision 2030 gave us the framework to put it, right? Gave us the platform, but also the framework.
No, absolutely. And I think that that is key. You are contributing to the economic growth. Therefore, you're contributing to each and every Saudi's opportunity to find a job, grow, open their own household and contribute to their livelihoods. And whether it's directly through you or indirectly, it's absolutely, I think that part of the mission, and it's the passion is very clear. But you've also mentioned, and this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs also complain about, that you did have trouble fundraising for an earlier startup. So where are you now with fundraising for Penny? And did you learn from those previous experiences that weren't as successful?
We learned a lot, learned so much. So in Penny, we don't have any problem fundraising. In fact, we have an opposite problem right now. But in my previous startup, when I was in the US, we really struggled to fundraise and we learned our lesson. The main reason why we failed in fundraising in my US startup is that, number one, we didn't fully own our own technology. So it's very, very important if you're building a technology company, own the technology. Make sure that you own your core value. Number two, we didn't. We were not building something that is quite disruptive. And it's so funny because what we were trying to do and we were making a lot of money. It baffled me. Like, how come we are not able? Like, what's wrong with those VCs? Why? Like, we're making money and they're not even seeing it. That company was making money. But still, it wasn't disruptive. It wasn't creating any breakthrough in a certain domain. And that's why it failed to raise external fundraising. And here's the funny part. At Penny, we are trying to do something very disruptive. We're trying to completely disrupt this multi-billion-dollar industry we're building deep tech. We're competing with Microsoft. We're competing with Oracle. Wallahi, Dr. Hammer, it's much easier now than before. And the reason why I couldn't have put it better than Sam Altman, when he was leading Y Combinator, he said something that truly resonated with my experience. It's easier to build hard companies than easy companies. And it's harder to build easy companies than hard companies. And it is so true. So my advice is, if you're building a company that should be VC backed and you want to raise funds, do something that is innovative, different, has a higher purpose, an exciting vision. Not only that will attract investors, but also attract talents to join them. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's really powerful. I do think that for a very long time in Saudi, you would see a lot of people who were really enterprising. They want to be their own boss. They want to start their own company. But are they filling a market gap? Are they actually filling a gap that can be exported and global in reach? A lot of times, no. And so I love that your example really is showing how to do that. And I think, again, you said that this is the last question I'm going to ask you about fundraising, but you said that you were, not struggling, quite the opposite. Has a lot of that support been from existing programs within the kingdom? Has that been support from VCs? Like, can you tell us a little bit about how the fundraising has gone?
100%. 100%. You know why? Because all the VC, not all, but I would say majority of the VCs in Saudi today are supported by government program. Program like the CEC, JADA, whatever, it ultimately goes back to initiatives by the government, which is amazing. By the way, that was the history of Silicon Valley. If we go back to the semiconductor day, it was exactly the history of Silicon Valley. It wasn't quite organic and quite capitalistic. So we cannot be oblivious of that. And I'm quite grateful. And I think that's the right thing to do for the economy.
I want to wrap it up by asking you probably a predictable question, but really, what is next for Penny Software? Are you expanding into other markets, industries? Can you just give us a glimpse into what you're building?
So when back in 2020, when we were putting together Penny, our vision was to build a $50 billion company by 2040. How do we do this? Dr. Hanna, we have no idea. We still have no idea. But we have that vision is that going to be a $50 billion company by 2040. We don't know how, but here's what we know. We know how we are getting Penny to be a $1 billion company by 2030. We know how, and we're working on that. Once we get there, we will figure out how to take that 1 billion to 50 billion by 2040. So what's next is we're laser focused on Penny. Penny is not the kind of company that will, and I tell investors this all the time, we're not going to be $1 billion company next year or 2 years. If that's your dream, that's not the right place for you. Penny is going to be $1 billion company by 2030. And inshallah, a $50 billion plus by 2040.
Iyad Aldalooj, founder of Penny Software. Just what an incredible journey. I am fascinated by your story. I think everybody on the show will be, and we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the 2030.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's get to the news.
Wynn Resorts, which holds the trademark for the Arabian Strip, now has permission to build the first casino in the region, and it has received a license to operate a, quote, gaming facility in the United Arab Emirates, according to a report in Semaphore Golf, which just launched, and I'm now following. I think, are you subscribed as well, Dr. Hanna?
No, should I? Should I?
Yeah, I like them before. I know some of their founders, so what they do is good here. Let's see if it takes in the region, but always good to have new sort of perspectives on everything. The announcement follows 2 years of activity that has included the establishment of a national gaming authority, the arrival of U.S. casino execs from Wynn and others, and progress on Wynn's $2.25 billion resort in Ras Al Khaimah. Still, according to the report, quote, "It's all been a bit hush-hush. There is no formal gambling law in the UAE, and officials have yet to utter the word casino in public, referring instead to the preferred term, which is gaming."
So, yeah, I mean, again, this is in the UAE, not in Saudi, but it's interesting. And, there are clearly some possibly new regulations here. The economic upside is significant, apparently, according to some of our Gulf real estate services from CBRE estimates the UAE's casino market at $8.5 billion, matching the size of the Vegas Strip and about a quarter of Macau's.
That is an interesting number. I wonder how they got to that. I mean, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine it being equal to Vegas, right? I mean, I don't know. That seems like a little bit of an inflation, maybe, but who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, who knows? I don't know. It obviously would capture. So you have Macau and you have Vegas, and they're very far away from each other, and this one's kind of in the middle. So maybe this is a new market, and it's trying to capture like maybe an African market as well as the rest of the Middle East. I don't know. I've never actually been to Vegas, so I don't know. I've never been to Macau either.
I have been to both. Macau is maybe the lowest ranking on all of the gambling destinations. I've played a lot of poker and internet poker, especially. I've been to Vegas a few times. It's not like my favorite place. It's very like fake, I don't know how to describe it, but
I think that's the right
yeah.
word.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I think this is interesting because, look, they don't want the gamblers of the region to be going elsewhere and gambling. It's lost potential revenue. This has been in the works for what, like 2 to 3 years at least. I remember seeing reports that this was rumored and under discussion for a long time. So,
I mean, it's the same as alcohol, right? Like if you're going to have it catering to, and I think that the point is it's technically not supposed to be gamblers of the region, right? It's supposed to be gamblers who are in the region. And that's the same with alcohol. And I guess it's a tricky one because a lot of people who are like tourists and especially like inter-Gulf tourists or inter-Middle East, North Africa tourists would like to go places where they don't feel like there's going to be accidental gambling and alcohol happening. I just happened to be watching a comedy last night. It's an old play called Bye Bye London. And I was watching it. And that's what was happening. There was like some accidental consumption of alcohol, but not accidental gambling, like definitely deliberate gambling. But the thing I think is this can be appealing to people who are living in the region and probably something that is a deterrent for people who would rather not. But the thing with the Emirates is you can have stuff that is okay in certain Emirates and not okay in others. And that makes it easier to travel between them for people who are looking for a more wholesome family atmosphere.
Yeah. Casinos are not like my favorite place. Like I like to play poker, but they're always like, I don't know. There's something about them.
A little bit seedy.
A little bit seedy. But I think what you're seeing here in Dubai is that they're trying to kind of build while the market is super hot. I mean, right now, you have an influx of millionaires going into Dubai. So you're seeing these sort of ultra luxury developments for real estate kind of popping up everywhere. Again, we will be having our friend and guest contributor onto the 2030, Faisal Durrani, to discuss this. We want him to focus more on the Saudi market, but I mean, Dubai is kind of hard to ignore. And this is very Dubai, right? To kind of be the first for something like this on the edge. And it will be interesting to see. The renderings look sweet. We will include that in our in the YouTube segment of this discussion. I thought this was interesting. It's
really interesting.
Yeah, this is from Bloomberg. An influx of millionaires since 2020 has transformed Dubai into one of the world's hottest markets for prime real estate. But despite a steep increase in prices, 17.4% increase last year, that's a lot. The Emirate offers more value, money for the money than most global cities. The market is still relatively competitively priced by global standards at $850 per square foot. Is that competitive? That's pretty high. And offers a comparatively low cost of living, a relatively easy visa process for sure, and a warmer climate in which people are attracted, and as well as domestic buyers. It's interesting what is happening in Dubai. It's just like a grow situation. So the timing for the win coming in now could be good. I mean, obviously construction has begun. So I don't know if you'll see me in there, but it's pretty cool.
So it's not in Dubai. It's in Ras Al Khaimah, which is another emirate, right? Because there's 7 of them. And it's about an hour, 45 minutes away, but still pretty local. And yeah, obviously catering to the Dubai market, I'm sure. But I was also looking at kind of what's happening with where people are moving at the moment. And there was a New World Wealth report that basically was saying the net number of millionaires expected to arrive or leave in 2024. And basically, people are moving to the UAE, the US, Singapore, Canada, and Australia, and leaving China, the UK, India, South Korea, and Russia in those orders, kind of. So UAE is top destination for millionaires.
Anecdotally, the influx of Russians into Dubai is something to behold, like something to see. It's a lot, obviously, with the war in Ukraine, and yeah. But you mentioned that they're on the lower end, right? You had China, and where else?
So the majority of people are leaving China, the UK. Well, UK's had some, basically they've changed a couple of laws with the new Labour government that are definitely a deterrent for people who previously could only be taxed on income that they bring into the country, but if they had global income that never entered the UK, they wouldn't get taxed on that. The non-dom kind of arrangement has been or is promised to be scrapped or at least revised significantly. So people are really leaving the UK at the moment. It's this number 2 place in the world where people are leaving. And then India, South Korea, and Russia.
Okay. South Korea. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're in Saudi Arabia and you're an authority in Saudi Arabia, you're taking a look at this. You're letting the UAE kind of beta test some of this stuff. I mean, I don't know if this is at all on the horizon for Saudi Arabia, but I mean, it's, kind of interesting to see what happens with this and then the outcome. I mean, if it does really well, you're going to be looking at this saying, hey, like, we don't want to be missing out on this revenue. Just like tourism really as a whole, you want people to stay if they're there, and then you want people to visit you instead of others. So, but
definitely. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's still all these cultural sensitivities around these things that I don't think that it happening in one place where it's been normalized for a very long time means it's going to happen somewhere else right away. But I think that it's definitely a space that is interesting and a very, very interesting development that I didn't actually see coming.
Yeah.
Even if apparently you did.
I did. Yeah. I mean, it kind of fits into the vibe, right? I mean, I don't know if I
guess so.
have a crystal ball, but yeah. Anyway, pretty interesting. We'll see how that turns out.
Saudi Arabia has slashed its economic growth forecasts and projected deeper budget deficits than previously estimated as the cost of efforts to overhaul the kingdom's economy outpace revenue, according to Bloomberg. Economic output is now seen growing at 0.8% this year, down from a prior forecast of 4.4%, according to fresh estimates in the report from the Finance Ministry on Monday. Projections for 2025-26 were also significantly scaled back.
Yeah, it's one of those macro storylines that we stay on top of here because it obviously is important. The ministry projected a wider budget shortfall of about 2.9% of GDP for 2024. Deficits are seen at 2.3% of GDP in 2025 and 2.9% in 2026. Also both worse than previously expected. Deficits are forecasted to persist due to, quote, expansionary spending policy intended to support economic growth, the ministry said.
Yeah, but meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's official reserve assets reached $469.83 billion in August, the highest in 21 months and 10% increase year on year, according to recent data. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a complicated situation, but this just fits in line with the vision. You're going to have these sort of ups and downs. You'll have some headwinds in what you're doing if you stay the course. You can't react to these things. You kind of have to just adjust and say, this is what we're doing and we're sticking with it. And it's interesting now because you have oil at a situation where you got Saudi Arabia and the OPEC Plus group throttling back production, which can have multiple effects on Saudi Arabia. But I mean, throttling up production, because they're trying to kind of get the market to adjust to that. So I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting time for Saudi Arabia because you're mid-vision. You're 7 to 8 years now in it, and you got to just stay the course because it appears to be working in many respects. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting data point to mention. Al-Ula has officially been named as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the GCC's first ever international dark sky park, in a major boost to the Royal Commission for Al-Ula's ambitions to develop stargazing, astrotourism, as well as space science and discovery in Northwest Arabia. This is according to a press release. Dark Sky International, the global body committed to tackling light pollution in urban and rural areas, awarded the Dark Sky Park accreditation across 2 locations in Al-Ula County, Al-Ula Manara and Al Garamil Nature Reserve. Sorry about the pronunciation.
Al-Ula's Dark Sky Park status was confirmed after several rounds of intensive reviews, with officials carefully evaluating the Royal Commission for Al-Ula's long-term plans and how they impact the natural and cultural landscape of Al-Ula. Dark Sky Parks provide significant scientific, educational, cultural, and natural value to a destination and will greatly uplift Al-Ula's growth as a prime location for stargazing tours and research. This aligns with the development of Al-Ula Manara as a pioneering destination for celestial discoveries and astrotourism.
Yeah, I mean, this is sick, right? It's like you one of the reasons to go to Saudi Arabia is if you get outside of the cities, the stargazing is out of this world, and you can see photos of it. Like really talented photographers will take unbelievable pictures. But I mean, this is a reason to visit this area specifically in Saudi Arabia, because you will be going and seeing the sky as, you know, as perfectly as it is viewable when you are far away from cities with no light pollution. I kind of want to go and see this. I mean, this looks awesome. And, you know, you have a lot of, you know, I don't know. I just feel like it's cool for them to get this.
Yeah, it is. So I've been stargazing in Al Ula, and it was phenomenal. And so I grew up camping. I think I've mentioned this before, in the Pacific Northwest. So we normally go kind of up into the mountains where there is very, very little to no light pollution at night. And for me, that experience was always one of the defining parts of my childhood, is just really like laying down on like the beach near the little like lake where we would go camping and watching the stars at night with my siblings and my dad. And it was just like the most amazing thing. And so I missed that in Saudi because I rarely went out to the desert. Like my family members would, but I rarely went with them. And so I'm excited because it is a transformational experience now. Plus the fact that like Saudis are going to space anyway, it's really important for them to be in touch with what's going on up in the sky. It's beautiful. It's really breathtaking.
Yeah, stargazing is awesome. I'm trying to get my children like kind of into it now. Like they're old enough. Unfortunately, it is after their bedtime where the best stargazing is here in the United States. I'm a little far from DC on the farm, so it's pretty good here, but it's not like the, oh my goodness, like, you know, dark sky certification level. So yeah.
Well, the thing with Al Ula, and so I went up to Northumberland here in the UK, and it's supposed to be the most amazing place for stargazing, and you can even see the northern lights, et cetera, et cetera. You couldn't see anything because of overcast, right? So in Al Ula, you don't have that. And that's one of the things that I think is really going to make a difference. People can travel, and it's a guaranteed view of a beautiful, beautiful, dark, dark sky with all the stars.
Yeah, I think we should get somebody on from Al Ula to discuss this and the deal and what is required, like how they provide the certification. You know, like how many stars you can see, or is it like a kind of a, you know, flavor judging thing?
I think it has to do with how dark it is. I think it has to be about how dark it is and how little like light pollution there would be, because you can see stars anywhere as long as there's no light, right? And so I believe that's probably what it is. I mean, we went to this really cool like stargazing event in Northumberland, and they had individual huge kind of telescopes that you could use to look, and they were kind of walking you through what you could see, and there was a chart. We saw nothing.
Because of the clouds, yeah.
Because of the clouds. Well, because of the clouds, and then just to top it off, like there was the moon was too bright as well. So when the clouds broke, it was the wrong time of year. Anyway, of the month, sorry. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot to stargazing. My dad was really into stars and planets when I was a kid, so I got really into it too. This is a cool piece of news. So work has restarted this week on the Jeddah Tower, which at more than 1,000 meters is set to surpass the 828-meter Burj Khalifa in neighboring Dubai as the world's tallest building when completed in 2028. The restarting of the tower was called a comeback attempt by the Financial Times for Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, who is reviving the project to build the world's tallest tower as developers in the kingdom embark on a flurry of glitzy real estate projects.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Jeddah when this announcement was made. It's cool because that is already kind of part of the, you know, the identity of Jeddah, because the building is not all the way there, but it has been started, and I don't know how many floors it is, but you can see it when you're like kind of driving around Jeddah. It's kind of on the water. It's super cool. My favorite part about this story is Prince Al-Walid tweeted or posted on X, I should say, quote, "We're back." And he did so sort of with his classic style of his aviator sunglasses. And, you know, it is a bit of first of all, I'm very excited to see this go forward. I'm a huge fan of like completely over the top. And especially I am. I love the like, this is the tallest building in the world, or like things like that, because I think that they become sights to be seen. I think what Dubai did with the Burj is like awesome because it's like, well, have you seen it yet? Because it is just so tall. And Dubai is already a city of skyscrapers. This will stand out even more because Jeddah is not a city of skyscrapers. And I don't know. I mean, it's just like also they've already started it. It's like, I don't know, halfway done. I don't know like what percentage completion it is, but I think the views from this will be insane. I've always been a fan of this project because it just seems like it's cool, and then so it kind of, you mentioned it in the read-in, Hannah, but there is a building boom in Saudi Arabia as well. And there's a lot going on literally right now. Hyatt said it would partner on 2 luxury hotels at Neom, and Marriott International revealed plans to open a Ritz-Carlton resort on the Red Sea coast next year, which is already being built, and where we should, I don't know, like film or do a live podcast so that we can hang out at the Ritz-Carlton. I bet that is actually amazing. It just kind of is like, and of course you have the rumor of the North Pole coming to Riyadh. I don't know if that will be taller than this building, but I could see that being a reality for sure if it is greenlit and goes ahead. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm glad they're finishing it, I guess is what I'm saying. But I think it will be pretty cool when it's done.
So I was recently on a tour on the Thames here in London. It was a boat tour that was gifted to my son, and we finally went on it. Anyway, as we were passing by the Shard, which is the tallest building here in London, the guy was like, look at our tallest building. If you actually want to imagine how much taller other buildings could be, just stack 2 buildings on top of that and you'd have the 2 shards on top of that and you would have the Burj Khalifa. I was like, oh my God, 2 more of them. I've been to the Burj Khalifa. I've been on top of the Burj. I just still can't even fathom how big it is, right? Like when you're not next to it, your brain kind of forgets almost. But yeah, definitely something that is, a sight to see and people talk about a lot, right? So what they're, the tower in Jeddah is definitely going to be a rival in the region. Again, if you're in Dubai, you might as well then go to Jeddah and then go to Al Ala and then go up to Neom and then visit Riyadh. And it's one of those things. It'll bring people in for sure.
It will. And of course, there is some excitement, perhaps you could say, that when you're looking at the Burj, it's the second tallest building in the world, and it's the second tallest in the region, of course, when this gets finished. And if other projects go forward as well, it does attract tourism. I mean, the Twin Towers did in New York, and now the new tower that has replaced that does. And I drove by it last week, I think it was, and it was imposing and beautiful. I don't know. I just love things like this, and it's very like juvenile of me. But
I'm more of this stargazing. Like that's what gets me going. Instead, I'd rather go stargaze and get it. I'm excited by that. The tallest buildings. But exciting.
Good
for
news,
some
you can
people.
do both because Al Ala is not that far from Jeddah, so you can fly into Jeddah.
That's very true.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. So congrats to them on that. It looks like 2027, I think, is when it will be done. That's actually not
2028
or 2028. That's not that far away.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be cool to see like what happens around that development in Jeddah. It's not in like the old city or anything. It's like on the coast and a little bit, I think, farther north. But it'll be a mixed use kind of thing. And the original renderings were like, I remember reading about like the engineering part of it as being quite difficult, just like the Burj, because it's like you're right on the water or you're on the coast. So you have challenges with like foundation and other things. So, I mean, this is full speed ahead. Can't wait to see it. And I think you'll like it too. And you could be like, okay, that's neat. And then you go out and do some stargazing. So yeah.
Yeah. Or a boat ride or something.
Or a boat ride, yeah. Dr. Hannah, let's get to shout outs.
So my shout out today is to the Saudi Orchestra. On the 28th of September, London was the 4th stop in the Saudi National Orchestra and Choir's Marvels of Saudi Music performance alongside the alongside the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in celebration of the 94th Saudi National Day. Under the patronage of Prince Badr bin Abdullah bin Farhan Al Saud, the Minister of Culture and Chairman of the Music Commission, the concert was a vibrant tribute to Saudi heritage and cultural diversity, blending authentic Saudi music with top-tier international performances at the iconic Central Hall, Westminster, featuring 100 talented Saudi musicians. It was pretty cool. So congratulations to them. I think there were some performances alongside, like actual like dance performances alongside the music, which was great. And they also performed the famed song "Ana min hal-ard," I'm from this land, which Ghada had mentioned when we were talking about the Saudi National Day in our last episode on that as well.
Yeah, that kind of blew up my LinkedIn feed. There was a lot of photos and different things from that. And the Saudis were wearing their traditional thobe. It was cool. I mean, I don't know. I think it's like a really cool thing where like you have sort of Saudi culture on display elsewhere. And there was a who's who in attendance. Did you get to go, Dr. Hanaa?
I was traveling at the time,
okay.
So no, I did not get to go. I was in Italy during that performance.
That's right. Okay, I'm sorry. Were you gonna go if you were there or no?
I was thinking about it, but I knew this had been in my diary for about a year, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it. Unfortunately, I didn't even actually try.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, Italy is not a bad, place to be in extended.
And I got to watch it the next day from the comfort of my own home on my couch. And really, that was great. So
yeah, like me in football for sure. My shout out is to an extraordinarily good gentleman named Careem Shimblain. He has received, and he lives in Jeddah. He has received from the French government, or is going to be honored by the French government, I should say, as a knight in the National Order of the Legion of Honor for the contribution he has made over his 30-year career to France's global business impact. So he's a Frenchman, obviously, and an ice hockey player, which we talked about ad nauseum. This honor is the highest civil and military distinction in France. It was established by none other than Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802 and delivered by decree of the French president. It recognizes individuals for their outstanding achievements to France. Specifically of interest to this podcast is Careem works with Nesma and Partners, which is based in Jeddah. So he has been sort of working in the Saudi ecosystem. He is such a good dude. If you ever come across Careem, just one of the nicest guys ever. So he will be honored in a ceremony on Tuesday, October 24th at the French residence in Jeddah, which I had to decline because I will be welcoming a new member of the family right around that date, inshallah. And I want to give him a shout out because he's one of these guys that lives in Saudi Arabia and loves it. His wife loves it. His children are growing up there, will now go to college soon in the US, I believe. But just a huge honor from him. I mean, I guess I got to call him Sir Careem now, but congratulations, Careem. It's a huge achievement and he's deserving of this. And especially with his kind of contributions to the Saudi economy and with Nesma and Partners. Congratulations, Careem. You deserve it. I don't know if I'll call you Sir Careem. Maybe I will. But also he is a very good hockey player, as it's very difficult to play hockey in Saudi Arabia. I've kind of looked into it. That he travels really with the Saudi team to Dubai and to other places where they have ice hockey rinks. But I think there is a rink in Jeddah that he plays at every week. Anyway, we're off topic of his knighthood, which is badass. Congratulations to you. Well done.
Congratulations to Careem. Well done.
With that, let's put a bow on 31. Dr. Hanaa, great to see you again.
Thank you so much.